1 year after the Council's defeat, Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper walked through the ruins of the former Galactic Council chamber on their capital world. The massive building had once been a symbol of alien power and wisdom, but now it served as a reminder of what happened to species that betrayed humanity. Broken statues of council leaders lay scattered across the floor, and human soldiers stood guard where alien diplomats had once made decisions for 400 worlds. The 7 council leaders who had survived the war knelt in chains before Dan's command chair. They looked nothing like the proud beings who had ruled the galaxy for centuries. The genetic weapon had aged them rapidly, stealing their connection to the advanced technology that had made them gods in their own minds. Now, they were frail and helpless, dependent on human medical care just to stay alive. Council leader Zorthok, the lizard-like alien who had personally ordered the human genocide, raised his head to look at Dan with dim, confused eyes. "Please," he whispered in broken human language. "My people are dying. The weapon you created is spreading to worlds that never participated in the war." Dan felt no sympathy for the creature. He had seen the reports from human colonies where billions had died screaming as the Council's bioweapon burned through their genetic code. Children had died in their mother's arms, while alien ships watched from orbit, making sure no one escaped the slaughter. "Your people are experiencing genetic degradation, not death," Dan replied calmly. "The same degradation you planned for every human child that would ever be born. The only difference is that we're allowing you to live." Director Megan Jones approached from across the chamber, carrying a datapad with the latest reports from the occupied territories. She had been promoted to head the new Human Colonial Authority, the organization responsible for governing former Council worlds. It was a job that required both administrative skill and an iron will. "Admiral, we've received formal surrender documents from the last 3 holdout systems," Megan reported. "Total human control of the galaxy is now complete." Dan nodded with satisfaction. It had taken exactly 1 year to transform humanity from a scattered group of survivors into the undisputed masters of galactic civilization. The Council's own infrastructure had made it possible once humans learned to operate their technology better than its creators. Ambassador Chris Bell walked into the chamber wearing the new uniform of the Terran hegemony. He had been chosen to serve as humanity's voice to the billions of alien civilians who now lived under human rule. It was a delicate position that required diplomacy combined with the implicit threat of overwhelming force. "Admiral, the non-council species are requesting representation in the new government," Chris reported. "They want assurance that they won't face the same fate as the council races." "What have you told them?" Dan asked. "That their fate depends entirely on their behavior," Chris replied. "Species that accept human authority and contribute to galactic stability will be treated fairly. Those that cause problems will be dealt with accordingly." Dan appreciated the subtle threat in Chris's words. The other alien species had watched in terror as humans dismantled 3 centuries of Council civilization in less than a year. They understood that cooperation was their only option for survival. Dr. Rachel Kim entered the chamber from her new laboratory complex, which had been built on the site of the former Council's genetic research facility. She had spent the past year studying the long-term effects of the human enhancement process, and her discoveries continued to amaze even her. "Admiral, the latest generation of human children is showing remarkable capabilities," Rachel reported. Enhanced intelligence, improved physical coordination, and most interesting of all, a natural ability to interface with quantum technology. What does that mean for our long-term development? Dan asked. It means that within 2 generations, humans will be as far beyond our current capabilities as we are beyond our ancestors from 1,000 years ago, Rachel explained. The Council's genocide attempt triggered an evolutionary leap that would have taken millennia under normal circumstances. Dan realized that the Council had created exactly what they feared most. Their attempt to prevent human evolution had instead accelerated it beyond their worst nightmares. Humanity was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that combined biological enhancement with technological supremacy. General Paul Martinez contacted the chamber from his headquarters on the former Council military world. He had been tasked with organizing the new Terran Defense Force, which would ensure that no alien species could ever again threaten human civilization. Admiral, construction of the new fleet is ahead of schedule, Paul reported. We'll have 500 next-generation warships operational within 6 months. Each one is more powerful than the entire Council fleet was at its peak. Excellent, Dan replied. And the monitoring systems? Every inhabited world in the galaxy now has human surveillance satellites in orbit, Paul confirmed. Any attempt to develop weapons technology will be detected and neutralized immediately. Dan had learned from the Council's mistake. They had allowed humanity to develop advanced technology because they believed they could control it. The new Terran hegemony would never make such an error. No alien species would be permitted to develop anything that could threaten human dominance. Commander Tyler Mason appeared on the chamber's main screen from his position aboard a deep space patrol ship. He was leading the expansion effort into unexplored regions of the galaxy, searching for any alien civilizations that might have escaped notice during the Council era. Admiral, we've made contact with a previously unknown species in the Andromeda sector, Tyler reported. They appear to be pre-industrial, no threat to our operations. Standard first contact protocols, Dan ordered. Establish communication, assess their potential value, and determine whether they pose any long-term risks. The new human approach to alien contact was very different from the old Council methods. Humanity evaluated each species based on their potential contribution to galactic civilization and their likelihood of causing future problems. Those who proved useful were integrated into the hegemony as junior partners. Those who proved troublesome simply disappeared. Lieutenant Sam Parker contacted the chamber from his training facility where he was preparing the next generation of human pilots. The genetic enhancements had produced children who could interface with spacecraft in ways that seemed almost supernatural to previous generations. Admiral, the new pilot candidates are exceeding all expectations, Sam reported. They can control multiple ships simultaneously through quantum neural links. A single enhanced human can now operate an entire squadron. Dan smiled as he realized the implications. Humanity would soon have military capabilities that no alien species could match or even comprehend. The Council had spent centuries building their civilization on the assumption that they were the most advanced beings in the galaxy. Now humans were leaving them so far behind that resistance was not just futile, but impossible to even conceive. Major Kate Phillips appeared in the chamber, accompanied by a group of young humans who represented the future of their species. These children had been born after the genocide, raised in a world where humanity ruled the galaxy without question. They showed none of the diplomatic restraint that previous generations had learned during their service to the Council. Admiral, the new colonial administrators are ready for deployment, Kate reported. "They've been trained to govern alien populations with appropriate firmness." Dan looked at the young faces and saw the cold certainty that came from growing up as members of the master race. These humans would never doubt their right to rule or question the necessity of maintaining control through strength. They were the product of the Council's betrayal, shaped by the knowledge that mercy toward enemies was a luxury humanity could not afford. Engineer Amy Collins joined the group, carrying a device that looked deceptively simple but represented the culmination of human technological achievement. She had successfully merged human creativity with Council scientific knowledge, producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. "Admiral, the new planetary management systems are ready for deployment," Amy announced. "We can now monitor and control every aspect of life on any world in the galaxy. Weather, agriculture, population levels, resource distribution, everything can be managed from a central location." Dan realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had created a civilization that combined absolute technological control with the flexibility to adapt to any challenge. The Council had ruled through tradition and established protocols. Humans ruled through innovation and overwhelming capability. Council leader Zorthak spoke again, his voice barely audible. "What do you want from us? What must we do to earn your forgiveness?" Dan looked down at the alien who had once commanded. "The death of 4 billion humans." "Forgiveness is not possible," he said quietly. "Your species chose to commit genocide against mine. The only reason you still exist is because we choose to let you live as an example." "An example of what?" Zorthak asked. "Of what happens to anyone who threatens humanity," Dan replied. "You will spend the rest of your existence as servants to the first strike happened simultaneously across 47 worlds at exactly midnight Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Claire Ross stood on the bridge of the rebuilt human flagship Vengeance and watched as Council military installations simply vanished from existence. No explosions, no debris, no warning. One moment the alien bases were there, and the next moment there was only empty space where they had been. "Quantum demolition charges successful on all targets," reported Captain Nick Turner from his position at the tactical station. "Phase 1 complete." Claire felt a cold satisfaction as she watched the tactical display. Dr. Walsh's quantum charges had worked perfectly, eliminating the Council's most important military assets without leaving any evidence of human involvement. The aliens would be confused and terrified, exactly as planned. "Begin Phase 2, Claire ordered. Across the galaxy, human ships that had been hiding in the shadows for 2 years suddenly revealed themselves. But these were not the ships the Council remembered. The new human fleet was smaller but infinitely more deadly, built from a combination of human engineering and stolen Council technology. The Vengeance led a squadron of 12 Shadowhawk destroyers toward the Council stronghold at Proxima Station. The enemy base was supposed to be impregnable, protected by energy shields and defended by over 200 warships. But the Council had never faced an enemy that could phase through their defenses. "Incoming transmission from Proxima Station," the communications officer announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Council Admiral Vextar, a 6-armed insectoid creature that had once praised human courage in battle. Now his compound eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves immediately," Vexatar demanded. "You are entering restricted Council space." Claire stepped forward so the alien could see her face clearly. She wanted him to understand exactly who was about to destroy him. "This is Admiral Claire Ross of the Terran Resistance," she said calmly. "We've come to collect what you owe us." Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Claire recognized as extreme agitation. "Impossible. All humans were eliminated 2 years ago. The bioweapon was 100% effective." "Your weapon killed 4 billion of my people," Claire replied. "Now we're going to return the favor." The Council ships opened fire immediately, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the human vessels. The Shadowhawks had phased into a different dimensional space, becoming untouchable while remaining able to attack. It was technology that the Council had never developed, because they had never needed to hide from a superior enemy. The human ships emerged from phase space directly inside the enemy formation. Their quantum cannons fired point-blank into Council hulls, punching through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. Within minutes, half the enemy fleet was floating debris. Major Kate Phillips led her strike team aboard Proxima Station while the space battle raged outside. Her soldiers moved through the corridors like ghosts, their enhanced reflexes and improved cognitive functions making them nearly unstoppable. The genetic changes Dr. Kim had documented were clearly visible in combat. These humans were faster, stronger, and more intelligent than their predecessors. "Resistance is lighter than expected," Kate reported through her helmet communicator. "The enemy appears to be in complete disarray." She led her team toward the station's command center, where Council officers were frantically trying to coordinate their defense, but their technology was failing them. The genetic weapon that Dr. Kim's team had developed was already spreading through the station's air supply, causing rapid neurological degradation in alien nervous systems. The Council species were discovering that their advanced technology required specific genetic markers to operate properly. Their quantum computers needed psychic interfaces that only pure-strain specimens could maintain. Their navigation systems relied on biological connections that were breaking down as the human weapons spread through their bodies. Kate's team reached the command center and found the Council officers collapsed at their stations, unable to interface with their own equipment. The aliens were still alive, but they could no longer access the technology that had made them masters of the galaxy. "Command center secured," Kate reported. "Enemy officers are neutralized but alive." Back on the Vengeance, Claire watched as Proxima Station's defenses shut down completely. The human genetic weapon was not designed to kill, but to disconnect the Council species from their own civilization. It was a form of technological lobotomy that left them helpless, but aware of their defeat. Commander Ryan Torres contacted the flagship from his position near the former human colony of New Texas. His task force had just liberated the world from Council occupation, and the results were exactly what the Resistance had hoped for. "Admiral, the Council garrison here has surrendered without firing a shot," Ryan reported. "Their weapons stopped working about an hour ago. They're requesting medical assistance." "Denied," Claire replied. "Let them experience what helplessness feels like." Lieutenant Sam Parker was leading a squadron of Shadowhawks against a Council supply convoy when his ships suddenly detected a massive energy signature approaching from hyperspace. A Council dreadnought 3 times the size of any human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, its weapons already charging. "This is Council Dreadnought Dominion," came a transmission from the alien vessel. "You will surrender immediately or face total destruction." Sam smiled inside his helmet. The Council still didn't understand what they were facing. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, Sam ordered his squadron. The 12 Shadowhawks suddenly split into what appeared to be 48 identical vessels. The Council's sensors could not distinguish between the real ships and the quantum echoes that human technology had created. When the dreadnought opened fire, it wasted its massive firepower shooting at shadows. The real human ships phased through the dreadnought's hull and emerged inside its engine compartment. Quantum charges detonated simultaneously throughout the massive vessel, and the pride of the Council fleet simply ceased to exist. Dr. Rachel Kim monitored the progress of the genetic weapon from her laboratory aboard the Resistance flagship. The results were better than she had hoped. The weapon was spreading through Council populations exactly as designed, targeting only the specific genetic markers that the 7 alien species shared. Admiral, preliminary reports indicate 97% effectiveness, Rachel announced. Council military forces are experiencing complete technological shutdown across all theaters of operation. Claire nodded with grim satisfaction. The Council had tried to eliminate humanity with biological warfare, and now they were learning what it felt like to have their own biology turned against them. Engineer Amy Collins was aboard the Shadowhawk prototype, testing the ship's ability to interface with captured Council technology. She had discovered that human neural patterns could access alien systems in ways their original creators never intended. Humans were taking control of Council ships, space stations, and planetary defense networks. Admiral, we've gained access to the Council's primary communication network, Amy reported. We can monitor all their transmissions and even send false orders to their remaining forces. Excellent, Claire replied. Begin Operation Confusion. I want their surviving commanders, receiving contradictory orders from multiple sources. Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper was coordinating the overall human offensive from his flagship, the Retribution. He had been a simple captain when the genocide began, but 2 years of guerrilla warfare had transformed him into a strategic genius. Now, he was watching as 3 centuries of Council dominance crumbled in a single day. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 Council worlds, his communications officer reported. They're offering complete capitulation in exchange for medical assistance. Dan looked at the strategic display and saw that humanity had effectively won the war in less than 24 hours. The Council's technological superiority had been their greatest strength, but it had also become their greatest weakness when humans found a way to disconnect them from it. Inform all Council forces that surrender will be accepted only on the condition of complete disarmament and submission to human authority, Dan ordered. Anyone who resists will face the same fate as Proxima Station. Captain Nick Turner contacted the command ship from deep inside Council space, where his task force had just captured the alien capital world. The planet's orbital defenses had shut down without firing a shot, and the ground-based military had surrendered as soon as their equipment stopped working. Admiral, we have control of the Council homeworld, Nick reported. The planetary government is requesting negotiation. Tell them there will be no negotiation, Dan replied. They chose genocide. Now they live with the consequences. As the human fleet consolidated its victories across the galaxy, Claire Ross realized that the war was effectively over. The Council had gambled everything on their ability to eliminate humanity quickly and quietly. Instead, they had created an enemy that was technologically superior, genetically enhanced, and absolutely ruthless. The tables had turned completely. The species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now helpless refugees in their own space, dependent. 2 years had passed since the day the Council tried to murder every human in the galaxy. The aliens believed they had succeeded. Their news broadcasts celebrated the elimination of the human threat, and they had already begun dividing up former human territories among themselves. But deep in the asteroid fields and on forgotten worlds at the edge of space, humanity was very much alive. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Base Alpha, a hidden facility carved into the heart of a massive asteroid. His face was scarred from the crash that had nearly killed him when the Terra's Revenge was destroyed. But his eyes still burned with the same determination that had made him a legend in the old fleet. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of 47 other hidden bases scattered across the galaxy. "Report," Jake said to Captain Lisa Brooks, who had somehow survived the destruction of their ship and found her way to the asteroid base 3 months after the genocide. "Operation Ghost Step was successful," Lisa said. "Commander Torres and his team destroyed the Council supply depot at Rigel 7. No survivors, no evidence left behind. The Council still thinks it was an accident." Jake nodded with satisfaction. For 18 months, the Terran resistance had been striking at Council targets while remaining completely invisible. They had learned to think like hunters instead of soldiers, using stealth and cunning instead of overwhelming force. Every attack was planned to look like an accident or equipment failure. Dr. Rachel Kim approached from across the command center, carrying a data pad with her latest research results. She had become the most important person in the resistance, not because of her rank, but because of what she had discovered about human genetics. "Admiral, I have good news and better news," Rachel said with a rare smile. "The good news is that we've successfully treated another 50 survivors with the immunity serum. They can now survive in areas where the bioweapon is still active." "And the better news?" Jake asked. "I figured out how to reverse engineer the weapon," Rachel said. "We can modify it to target Council DNA instead of human DNA. Every species that participated in the genocide has unique genetic markers. We can create a weapon that will affect only them." Jake felt a cold smile spread across his face. The Council had created the perfect weapon for genocide, and now humanity would use their own creation against them. It was justice in its purest. Lieutenant Sam Parker walked into the command center wearing the black uniform of the Resistance's new stealth fighters. He had become one of their best pilots, specializing in missions that required precision and nerves of steel. Behind him walked engineer Amy Collins, who had spent 2 years developing new technologies from salvaged Council equipment. "Admiral, the prototype is ready for testing," Amy said. "We've successfully combined human engineering with Council technology. The result is something neither species could have created alone." She led them to the main hangar, where a sleek black ship waited like a predator in the shadows. It was smaller than the old human warships, but Jake could see immediately that it was far more dangerous. The ship seemed to bend light around itself, making it difficult to focus on. "We call it the Shadow Hawk," Amy explained. "It can phase in and out of normal space, making it nearly impossible to detect or target. The weapon systems use quantum tunneling to bypass enemy shields entirely." Commander Tyler Mason climbed down from the pilot's seat of the prototype. He was a quiet man who had lost his entire family when the Council destroyed his homeworld. But he had channeled his grief into becoming the perfect weapon against their enemies. "The ship responds like it's alive," Tyler said. "I've never flown anything that felt so natural. With a squadron of these, we could take on a Council fleet 10 times our size." Jake looked at the ship and realized that humanity had evolved during their 2 years in hiding. They had taken the best of their own technology and combined it with everything they had learned about their enemies. The result was something new and terrifying. Dr. Kevin Walsh approached from another section of the hangar where teams of engineers were working on other projects. He carried a small device that looked like a simple metal sphere, but Jake knew it was anything but simple. "Admiral, the quantum demolition charges are ready for field testing," Kevin said. "Each device can phase matter out of existence completely. No explosion, no debris, no evidence. The target simply ceases to exist." "How many can we produce?" Jake asked. "With our current resources, about 100 per month," Kevin replied. "But each device can eliminate a structure the size of a council command center." Jake thought about the possibilities. The Resistance now had weapons that could strike without warning and leave no trace. They had ships that could appear and disappear, like ghosts. Most importantly, they had a weapon that could turn the Council's own genocide tool against them. Major Kate Phillips joined the group, still wearing her combat gear from a recent mission. She led the Resistance's elite strike teams, small groups of soldiers who specialized in impossible missions behind enemy lines. Her teams had rescued hundreds of human survivors from Council prison camps. "Admiral, we've identified the location of Council Leader Zorthak's personal command ship," Kate said. "It's heavily defended, but my team thinks we can get close enough to plant one of Dr. Walsh's devices." "Not yet," Jake said. "We're not ready for direct confrontation with the Council. Leadership, we need to build our strength first." "With respect, sir, every day we wait is another day they consolidate their power," Kate replied. "They're already establishing permanent settlements on former human worlds. If we wait too long, we'll never be able to take them back." Jake understood her frustration, but he had learned patience during his 2 years in hiding. The Council thought humanity was extinct, which was their greatest advantage. Once they revealed themselves, they would lose the element of surprise forever. "We stick to the plan," Jake said. "Phase 1 is complete. We've established our base network and developed our new weapons. Phase 2 begins next month. We start hitting their military installations, but we make it look like terrorist attacks by other species." Rachel held up her datapad, showing a complex genetic map. "Admiral, there's something else you need to know. My research has revealed why the Council was so afraid of us. Human DNA contains dormant genetic sequences that don't exist in any other known species. The bioweapon was designed to prevent those sequences from activating." "What kind of sequences?" Lisa asked. "Enhanced reflexes, improved cognitive function, increased resistance to radiation and toxins," Rachel explained. "The sequences are triggered by extreme stress and survival pressure. The Council wasn't just trying to eliminate us. They were trying to prevent us from evolving into something that could challenge their dominance." Jake realized that the Council's betrayal had backfired in the worst possible way. By trying to destroy humanity, they had triggered the very evolution they feared. The survivors were already stronger, smarter, and more adaptable than humans had ever been before. "How long before these changes become permanent?" Jake asked. "For the current generation of survivors, the changes are already irreversible," Rachel said. "Our children will be born with capabilities that previous generations could only dream of. The Council tried to destroy us, but instead they created something far more dangerous than what we were before." Jake looked around at his officers and saw the future of humanity in their faces. They were harder than the humans who had served the Council, more focused and determined. They had been forged in the fire of betrayal and genocide, and they had emerged as something new. The underground war was about to end. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity had not only survived the Council's betrayal, but had used it to become the apex predator the aliens had always feared they could be. The time for hiding in shadows was almost over. It was time for revenge. The attack came at dawn on every human world across the galaxy. Commander Ryan Torres was drinking coffee in his office on New Texas when the first orbital bombardment hit the city. The windows exploded inward as plasma fire rained down from council ships that had been hiding behind the planet's 3 moons. Ryan threw himself under his desk as the building shook and pieces of the ceiling fell around him. His communication device crackled with panicked voices from all over the planet. "This is Marine Base 7. We're under heavy attack. Council ships are bombing the civilian districts. They're targeting the hospitals and schools." Ryan crawled to his window and looked up at the sky. Dozens of alien warships hung in the atmosphere like metal vultures, their weapons creating bright streaks of death as they fell toward the surface. These were supposed to be friendly ships, vessels from species that humans had protected for 2 centuries. Now they were murdering innocent people without warning or mercy. His door burst open and engineer Amy Collins ran into the room. She was covered in dust and had blood on her forehead from a cut above her left eye. "Commander, the spaceport is gone," she said, breathing hard. "They hit it first along with all our communications arrays. We can't call for help." "How many ships do we have left?" Ryan asked. "Maybe 6 fighters if any of them survived the bombing," Amy said. "The Council took out our main hangar with the first strike." Ryan felt sick as he realized how perfectly the aliens had planned this attack. They had spent months learning the location of every human military base, every weapons depot, every ship. When they struck, they knew exactly what to hit first. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Kevin Walsh was running through the corridors of the research station where he worked. Alien soldiers in black armor were moving through the building, killing every human they found. Their weapons made no sound, just a soft humming noise followed by the thud of bodies hitting the floor. Kevin reached the emergency laboratory where he kept his most important research. He had been working on human genetics for 10 years, trying to understand why humans were so different from other species in the galaxy. Now that research might be the only thing that could save them. He activated his computer and began downloading all his files onto a portable drive. Behind him, he could hear the aliens getting closer. Their boots made clicking sounds on the metal floor, like giant insects walking through the station. The computer finished downloading just as the laboratory door exploded inward. 3 alien soldiers pointed their weapons at Kevin, but he was already moving. He dove behind a workbench as energy beams burned the air where he had been standing. The portable drive was in his pocket, and that was all that mattered now. Kevin crawled toward an emergency exit that led to the station's escape pods. He could hear the aliens searching the laboratory, looking for him among the broken equipment and scattered papers. One of them said something in the council language that Kevin could not understand, but the tone was angry and frustrated. He reached the escape pod bay and found that most of the pods were already gone. Other researchers had escaped when the attack began, if they were lucky. Kevin climbed into the last working pod and started the launch sequence. As the pod shot away from the station, he looked back and saw alien ships destroying what had been his home for 5 years. On Earth, the bioweapon was already spreading through the major cities. It looked like a green mist that fell from the sky like rain, covering everything it touched. Most humans who breathed the mist died within hours, but some did not. Dr. Rachel Kim was one of the lucky ones. She stood in her laboratory in Geneva and watched through the window as people collapsed in the streets. The weapon was designed to attack human DNA. But Rachel had always been different. Her grandmother had been part of a genetic experiment decades ago, and Rachel had inherited some unusual genetic markers that most humans did not have. "Computer, "Begin emergency analysis of atmospheric contamination," Rachel said. The laboratory computers began scanning the green mist that was covering the city. Rachel put on a protective suit and collected samples from outside the building. She needed to understand exactly what the Council had created and how it worked. As she worked, Rachel thought about her colleagues who had died in the first few minutes of the attack. Dr. Martinez had been talking to his daughter on the phone when he suddenly stopped breathing. Dr. Johnson had been eating lunch when the mist came through the window and killed him instantly, but Rachel was still alive, and that meant something important. If she could survive the weapon, maybe other humans could too. Maybe there was a way to fight back against the genocide that was happening across the galaxy. General Paul Martinez was hiding in a bunker deep under the Colorado mountains when he got the first reports from human colonies. Every single world with a human population was under attack. The Council had planned this for years, maybe decades, and they were executing it with cold efficiency. "Sir, we're getting signals from the fleet," his communications officer said. "Admiral Morrison's ship is under attack in the Kappa sector." Paul looked at the tactical display and saw red dots disappearing one by one. Each dot represented a human ship with hundreds of crew members. The Council was destroying them as fast as they could find them. "What about the colonies?" Paul asked. 17 colonies have gone silent in the past hour," the officer said. "We're picking up emergency transmissions from 8 more, but the signals are getting weaker." Paul realized that humanity was losing this war before they even knew they were fighting it. The Council had struck without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. They wanted every human in the galaxy dead, and they were very close to achieving that goal. But humans were survivors. They had evolved on a dangerous planet where everything tried to kill them, and they had learned to adapt to any threat. Paul began thinking about how to organize the scattered survivors into a resistance force that could strike back at their betrayers. Lieutenant Sam Parker was flying one of the last human fighters when his squadron was ambushed by Council ships. Near the Vega system, his friends died around him as alien weapons tore through their small ships like paper. Sam managed to escape by hiding his fighter in the shadow of an asteroid, but he was alone in space with nowhere to go. His communication system crackled with a weak signal from another survivor. "This is Engineer Collins on New Texas. Is anyone out there?" "This is Lieutenant Parker," Sam replied. "I'm in the Vega system. My squadron is gone." "Parker, listen carefully," Amy's voice said through the static. "The Council is jamming our communications, but I found a way around it. There are other survivors scattered across the galaxy. We need to find each other and regroup." Sam felt hope for the first time since the attack began. Humanity was not completely destroyed. They were hurt and scattered, but they were still fighting. The Council had betrayed them and murdered billions of innocent people. But the war was not over yet. As Sam guided his fighter toward the coordinates Amy had given him, he thought about revenge. The aliens had made a terrible mistake when they decided to attack humanity. They had awakened something that had been sleeping in human DNA for thousands of years, something that their ancestors had used to survive against creatures much bigger and stronger than themselves. The Council thought they were eliminating a threat to their power. Instead, they had created an enemy that would never stop hunting them until every last alien who participated in the genocide was dead. Humanity would survive, and when they did, the galaxy would learn why their species had been feared in the first place. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra's Revenge and watched the stars flow past like silver tears in the darkness. His ship was the biggest and strongest in the human fleet, and it carried the hopes of 400 worlds across, 12 sectors of space. For 20 years, he had served the Galactic Federation, fighting pirates and raiders who threatened peaceful alien worlds. The other species called humans heroes, and Jake had always believed that was true. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines and the gentle beeping of computers. Captain Lisa Brooks walked up to him with a data pad in her hands. Her face looked worried, which was not normal for Lisa. She was usually calm and sure about everything, even during the worst battles they had fought together. "Admiral, we need to talk about something," Lisa said in a low voice. She looked around the bridge to make sure no one else could hear them. "I found something in the communication logs that doesn't make sense." Jake took the data pad and looked at the screen. The words were written in the old council language that most humans could not read, but Jake had learned it during his early years in the fleet. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The message talked about something called Project Severance and mentioned targeting human DNA. It also mentioned keeping human forces scattered across the galaxy. "Where did you find this?" Jake asked. "It was hidden in the background noise of a routine council transmission," Lisa said. "Dr. Kevin Walsh helped me decode it. He thinks there might be more messages like this one." Jake felt his hand shake as he read the message again. The council was supposed to be their ally. For 200 years, humans had worked with the 7 alien species that ruled the galaxy. Humans provided the military strength, while the council provided technology and guidance. It had always seemed like a fair deal. "Get Dr. Walsh up here right now," Jake said, "and make sure Ambassador Helen Carter knows about this too." Dr. Walsh arrived on the bridge 10 minutes later. He was a thin man with gray hair and smart eyes that always seemed to be thinking about something complicated. He carried a portable computer that was beeping softly. "Admiral, I've been working on this since Captain Brooks brought it to me," Dr. Walsh said. "I found 17 more messages hidden in council transmissions over the past 6 months. They're all talking about the same thing. The council has been planning something they call the final solution." Jake felt sick to his stomach. "What kind of final solution?" "They've created a weapon that targets human genetics specifically," Dr. Walsh explained. "According to these messages, they've been testing it on isolated human colonies in the outer rim. The weapon kills humans, but doesn't hurt any other species." Ambassador Helen Carter arrived on the bridge looking confused and angry. She was a small woman with short brown hair who had spent 15 years representing humanity on the council. She had always trusted the alien leaders and believed they truly cared about peace in the galaxy. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Helen said after reading the messages. "The council would never do something like this. We've been allies for centuries." "The evidence is right here," Lisa said. "And there's more. Look at this deployment schedule." She showed them another message that talked about sending human fleets to different parts of the galaxy. Jake recognized the deployment pattern because he had received those same orders just 3 days ago. His fleet was supposed to split up and go to 12 different sectors to fight what the council called a major pirate uprising. "They're spreading us out on purpose," Jake realized. "They want our ships far apart so we can't help each other." Dr. Walsh nodded grimly. "And according to this timeline, they plan to attack all human colonies and fleets at the same time, tomorrow." The bridge became very quiet. Jake looked at his officers and saw fear in their eyes. They had all believed they were fighting for something good and right. Now they learned that their trusted allies had been planning to kill every human in the galaxy. "What about Earth?" Jake asked. "The messages mention Earth specifically," Dr. Walsh said. "They call it the primary target. They plan to hit it with the bioweapon first, then destroy any surviving military installations." Jake closed his eyes and thought about his home planet. Billions of humans lived there, including his own family. His wife Mary and his 2 children had no idea that death was coming for them. Most humans in the galaxy had no idea what was about to happen. "We have to warn everyone," Helen said. "We need to contact Earth and all the human colonies right now." "It might be too late," Lisa said. "Look at this communication log. The Council has been jamming long-range transmissions for the past week. They told us it was because of solar storms in the nearby systems." Jake realized how carefully the Council had planned everything. They had been lying to humans for months, maybe years. Every mission the human fleet had fought, every battle against pirates and raiders, had been designed to keep them busy while the Council prepared their genocide. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Council Command," the communications officer called out. Jake looked at the main screen as the image of Council Leader Zorthak appeared. The alien looked like a giant lizard with 4 arms and glowing red eyes. He had always spoken kindly to Jake before, but now his expression was cold and hateful. "Admiral Morrison, you and your fleet are ordered to proceed immediately to the Kappa sector," Zorthak said. "Intelligence reports indicate a massive pirate fleet is gathering there. You must stop them before they attack our peaceful worlds." Jake stared at the alien leader and felt anger burning in his chest. "Understood, Council Leader. We'll depart immediately." "Excellent. Remember, Admiral, the safety of the galaxy depends on human courage and sacrifice. The Council is grateful for your service." The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his officers. They all understood what had just happened. The Council was sending them into a trap, just like they were sending every other human fleet in the galaxy into traps. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Lisa asked. Jake thought carefully. If they tried to warn other fleets, the Council would know they had discovered the plot. But if they did nothing, every human in the galaxy would die. He had to make a choice. That could save his species or doom them all. "Set course for the Kappa sector," Jake said, "but prepare the ship for combat. And Lisa, send a coded message to all human fleet commanders. Tell them to be ready for anything." As the Terra's Revenge turned toward its destination, Jake watched the stars and wondered if this would be the last day of human civilization. The Council had betrayed them, but humans were not easy to kill. If the aliens wanted a war, they would. Get one they would never forget. The trap was closing, but Jake Morrison was not going to let his species die without a fight.